Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Nationwide and United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce webinar today with Nick Delgado. In the chat, you will find a worksheet to download ahead of time, but it's my honor to introduce our President and CEO, Ramiro A. Cavazos.
Thank you, Brianna, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Business Solutions Series question and answer session. It's brought to you by our friends at Nationwide and corporate partners and the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. As Brianna said, my name is Ramiro Cavazos. I'm the President and CEO of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I'm really excited to welcome you to today's webinar. Nationwide is a longtime partner of ours, and prior to my joining the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, worked very closely with their team in the San Antonio location. Now, we have over 250 Hispanic chambers around the country that call Nationwide their business and finance partner, and we want to thank all of you who are joining us from around the country to learn more about how to build an effective growth strategy from their capital advisor, our special guest today, Nick Delgado. We're excited also that we're going to be offering this virtual business program that provides digital learning opportunities to United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce members to help grow their business. Please be sure to share Nick's video and what you learn today on social media using hashtag NWBizBuilder, hashtag NWBizBuilder. Before we get started, I'd like to turn this over to another great friend and partner for us at Nationwide, who's made today's live Q&A possible. Before I do that, I'd like to thank Brianna and of course our team and staff and our board of directors for their leadership. At this time, I also want to thank Lori Burgos for her partnership with us at the Hispanic Chamber, and also introduce my great friend, Lou Yarbrough III. He's the Assistant Vice President of Enterprise, Diverse, and Cause Marketing at Nationwide. I'd like for him to say a few words, and thank you, Lou, and your whole team for everything you're doing right now during this challenging time. And thank you and Nick for putting this conference together with Lori and your team at Nationwide. Lou, the show is yours.
Thank you so much, Ramiro. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. As Ramiro said, my name is Lou Yarbrough III. I'm the Associate Vice President of Enterprise, Diverse, and Cause Marketing at Nationwide. And Nationwide is really proud to be partners with the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and proud to bring to you this virtual workshop today as part of our Business Solutions series. The series launched earlier this year, and it's really a great example of our intention of why we partnered with the USHCC, and that was to make sure that that you had access to experts and tools to help you run and grow your business. Nationwide is a strong and solid company, but more importantly than that, we're also a company that has a heart for our partners, for our members, and our community as a whole. And this partnership with the USHCC helps us, and this program reinforces our commitment to small business community and helping them through this uncertain time and beyond it. Hopefully, you all had the opportunity to actually watch all three of the episodes that are part of this series. The first one around social media from Carlos Gil, the second from Carla Sandoval around business planning, and then the third with our friend Nick Delgado around business valuation and growth strategies. And it is an honor to be here alongside Ramiro and Nick. And Nick, he has an exciting presenter. I've heard him on numerous occasions, so you guys are all in for a big treat. He has also been a featured speaker on multiple media outlets because of his unique blend and brand of financial inspired strategies. So make sure you guys have your notepads ready to take some great notes so that you can apply what you learned today to your business today as well. He's also the president of Black Pen Whiteboard, which is a private investment company that helps entrepreneurs secure big deals as well. Nick lives currently in Los Angeles. I heard his happy place is San Sebastian, Spain. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to our friend and partner, Nick Delgado.
Excellent. Thank you, Lou. Before we start, let me just thank my friends at the USHCC and Nationwide for organizing today's conversation. I'm going to speak plainly with you today. So if for any reason you disagree with what I say, you find my approach offensive, or you just have a bias against bald guys, I get it. Just know that that's on me, Nick Delgado, and not Nationwide. However, if you love this conversation and it changes the way you think about your life or your business, then please send all gratitude and thank you cards to Columbus, Ohio, to the headquarters of Nationwide. Okay, legal disclaimer over. Let's start the show. We have a simple recipe for today. It's a touch of history with a dash of drill to provoke a little conversation before you go back to running your business. Before we look into our crystal balls for the future, let's take a look back. Pre-COVID-19, where was the economy? Well, it was in this special zone between late cycle expansion and pre-contraction. This is a chart of major global economies on January 31st of this year. You see, what COVID-19 did was simply accelerate the path we were already on. Now that acceleration has been sudden and aggressive. We're in a recessionary environment, that's clear. So what? Well, the good news is we know recessions. The bad news is since the early 90s, we've only really seen 3. Now the last one in 2009 was of historical proportions, as you can see here. However, I'm afraid our muscle memory is not as strong as it needs to be, which means at a moment like this, things can be scary. And we know as humans, when we're scared, we tend to focus and shorten up our vision. That's just who we are. I get it. What should scare you is not a recession, because as I'll show you, probability is on our side to recover collectively. As an entrepreneur, you should be scared if you cannot see beyond the immediate, because your vision is your superpower. Now, I'm not a betting man, but I do like predictions. So here's one. We'll recover from this recession, and we'll do it in less time than the historical average of 15 months. So 15 months from today is July 2021. What happens after a recession, as you know, is a new expansion. So the big takeaway here is not that the previous economic cycle is over, which it is, or that COVID-19 has devastated our economy, put 26 million people out of work, and dropped us into a recession like we've never seen before, which it has. The big takeaway here is what's on the other side. Not the other side of COVID-19. It's the other side as in the next economic cycle that is going to begin at some point in the next 2 years. So now what? Now, Brianna, we have some really smart people on this session today. So I'd like to see what everyone thinks. Brianna, can you please load the first question?
Everyone should see a poll pop up on their screen. Please take the poll. Okay.
And Brianna, once everyone votes, why don't you report out in terms of what we're seeing in this poll on everyone's economic viewpoint?
Will do. The votes are coming in still. Okay. Here we go. All right, it looks like the biggest one was the vote for where do you see your industry headed? Economic recession from COVID-19 impact.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And look at that distribution. I don't know if you could go back to it, Brianna.
Yeah.
Really interesting distribution from recession. And then the second highest one, economic recovery. But then expansion is not too far behind. So it's a really interesting distribution across those answers. And then 3% of our friends are obviously not economists. So that's always good to know who our audience is. Great, thank you, Brianna. So here's another question for you guys. If the economy is cyclical and in constant change. And we're in the midst of an economic transition today and in the next 15 months, then why wouldn't your business change? You see, it should. And I'm not talking tactical survival mode, PPP, EIDL, cost-cutting change. I'm talking strategy and business model change. Here's the gift of how this recession came on. It was fast, sudden, and put everyone in the same place, on their butts and in their homes. This is the rare slowdown in the game of capitalism. This is effectively a TV timeout. And it's really a moment for some of you to play catch up, for others to get ahead. And for all of us, it's definitely a moment to reflect and think into the future. I want to spend the next few minutes unpacking one of my favorite drills for leaders, a 3x3 scenario matrix. If you don't have the PDF open, I'm going to recommend you download it from the chat and follow along now. And in fact, I'm going to open up my own so you guys can see mine real time. So here's the thing and the inspiration behind this. As an entrepreneur during a time of transition, you need a read on the future. Your people need it, your customers need it, your business needs it. So you don't have the luxury, none of us do, of surfing the prevailing logic or economic trend because it's all in flux. We're going to use this 3x3 scenario matrix to help frame our decisions about the future on an ongoing basis. So here's how it works. First, you're going to need to do some industry research to formulate an ecosystem view of what's going on around you. I recommend 3 activities. The first is to consume industry research reports. I like IBIS reports. They're organized by industry codes, and your banker or local CDC can usually provide them to you free of charge. The second activity is to talk to your employees. I love using design thinking workshops to address our current customers' greatest challenges to understand what's possible. And third, talk to your customers. Just this morning, CNBC had the owner of a steakhouse in Georgia that was holding off on opening for 2 weeks as his state opens back up. And his rationale for delaying reopening was based on surveys that he circulated to his customers on social media. For purposes of today, we're going to roll with your intuitive sense for where things are headed in your industry. The second step to the scenario matrix is to assign probabilities to various scenarios. Now let's talk about these 2 axes in this matrix. The horizontal axis is duration or time. As you can see, the units of time are straightforward and generally align with your strategic planning assumptions. This is going to be our primary axis. So we are completing the work going down or in the columns versus across or in the rows. Now, the vertical axis represents your economic reality as measured by profit growth. And we're going to use profit growth because it's the single greatest contributor to a company's value. Revenue is nice, but we're prioritizing what you keep versus what you sell. We'll also use growth on profit because growing companies are living and companies not growing are, well, they're doing the opposite of living. So let's start by working together on our short-term probabilities. Take a moment now to allocate percentages across the various economic scenarios in the short-term column. I'm going to use a manufacturing company as my example. I'm working on actually acquiring this company over the next 2 months. This manufacturing company has moderate revenue visibility, but their expense structure is fairly consistent. Now they've shared with me, they've actually experienced an uptick in RFPs, but they do not have a history of explosive growth. So what I'm going to do here is allocate 70% to my base case. I'm also going to value the bull and bear cases with equal probability. Notice in the short-term column, all of my economic reality scenarios total 100. Brianna, I'm curious what our friends on the call think about their business in the next 12 months. Can you please load our next question?
Yes. The next poll is on your screen. Please vote now.
Actually, Brianna, this is intermediate term. Do we have a short-term poll?
Oh, let me see, 1 second.
If we don't, that's okay.
Sorry, this is the one that's queued up on here. Should I put the intermediate one back up, Nick? No, not yet.
You know what? Let me go through my intermediate case, and then I'll have the audience share their intermediate case as well, right?
Sorry.
So, no worries. So after you've completed the short-term duration, at this point, what we need to do is think about the intermediate duration. So this is 13 to 24 months out. Now I'm considering my view on recession and recovery. In my unique situation with this manufacturing company, I'm also planning on installing a new marketing and sales program over this time frame, and that should start ramping up. I still think we'll be in the base case, as you can see in my numbers, but I'm feeling more bullish than bearish. So I've allocated the remaining probability appropriately. All right, Brianna, now let's take it to the people and let's see how they're feeling about their intermediate duration probabilities.
Got it. Your intermediate poll is on the screen. Please vote. We've got quite a few votes coming in, Nick.
That's great.
Folks finish. Okay. People are still voting. All right.
All right, what do we have, Brianna?
So it looks like the bull case, 10% profit growth, received the most answers, although right behind that was the base, and my crystal ball is not working.
Doesn't that happen sometimes? Our crystal ball starts breaking down. This is fascinating that for folks on this call, just in the next 13 to 24 months, that we have a relative majority, 36% at the bull case. That's very encouraging for our businesses. Excellent. Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you.
Okay, so home stretch in this exercise. So let's talk long-term. Now, I know this is where some of our crystal balls, and in fact, I think it was 25% of our crystal balls started to break down in the intermediate term. This is generally where our crystal balls start running out of gas. This is also where your research, trend monitoring, and strategic plan matter the most. For me, I have certain goals for this manufacturing company. We want to sell in month 60. So we need to be rocking by month 36. So what I've done here is I've bumped up my bull case, as you can see, still leaning into the base case at 50%, but my bull case is now 45%. Brianna, this is a really fun group. So let's see how strong their long-term vision is. Can you please load the final scenario?
Yes. All right, the final poll is on your screen. Please participate. All right, we have more votes coming in. Some folks are changing their vote. This is good.
Oh,
they're
excellent.
thinking it
Okay.
through.
That crystal ball is dynamic, you know, when you really think about it.
All right, here we go.
All right, what do we have?
Looks like, again, we have the bull case with even more people participating. 42% see a 10% profit growth in the future.
Yeah, so these are very encouraging, right? To know that our businesses are really bullish, intermediate, and long term. And just a little fun fact with this population. Notice that the crystal ball percentage actually went down. So people's crystal balls were working in the longer term, a little bit better than the intermediate term. Thank you, Brianna, for posting those results.
Sure.
What I ask all of you as you completed this worksheet, notice one, that it didn't take very long. I'd encourage you to take this back to your team. But let's just take a moment to observe our little scenario masterpieces here and ask yourself, what do you see? I see with mine that I'm making a bullish bet. So I better make sure that I'm allocating resources today so that I'm in a position to realize my goals tomorrow. Now, I'd love for you guys to share what you see in your masterpieces, just high-level observations in the chat as well. I'm going to go back and share my other screen here for a moment. So that was fun. And we have to ask ourselves, now what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to update my strategy to make sure my offering, target market, geographic focus, and competitive advantage are all aligned for the next cycle. Now, we have a more in-depth video on strategy through the Nationwide Business Solution Series website. After that, I'm definitely updating my financial model. And that's not just my profit and loss. I'm talking about the whole package. So that's the income statement, the balance sheet, and cash flows. And lastly, I'm going to take my financial statements to determine where I need additional cash. If I do, I have the basis for a solid conversation with the bank or other investors. Now, Brianna, I know I have a plan based on this scenario matrix. I know you have a plan based on the scenario matrix. Let's see what the audience intends to do with their insights from their scenario matrices.
All right. You'll see the question on your screen in the poll. Please participate.
This one has some more options here, so we need to unpack some of these, huh? We'll give people a little bit more time. There's more reading.
We have our first vote. Here we go.
All right.
They're coming in, Nick.
Great.
Give people a few more seconds. I know this was a longer question to read.
Yes, there's some big words in there, you know, capital expenditures, mergers and acquisitions. This one's getting a little bit more sophisticated beyond the crystal ball.
Give everybody about 5 more seconds. Okay. Let's see, how will you use the insight from the scenario planning matrix? It looks like the most votes went to financial modeling.
That's interesting. So you got financial modeling, and then also look at the second one there, expense management. So people obviously have an eye toward expense management, and then CapEx, so those major spends for companies generally to fuel their growth, coming in at number 11, tied with I have something even better. So for those of you that have something even better, please share in the chat what's even better. Thank you guys for participating. Let's continue. Thank you, Brianna. As you guys can see, I'm passionate about doing drills. They really do make us better. And the scenario matrix is just one drill that can help you gain certainty and feed your edge. So let's open this up. I'd love to hear what's on your mind. As you can see, here are a few topics that are fair game. I'll address my favorite LA taco truck up front. The Al Pastor at Flaming Taco is next level. It's right next door to my meditation center, Samarasa in Echo Park. So after I get my chakras right, I grab a few tacos. They're really good. Actually, I think my mouth is watering. So Brianna, any questions we have from the people? Happy to open it up to this Q&A.
Yes, as a reminder, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit a question. We do have a few in the chat, but the Q&A just makes it easier. The first one that I saw, Nick, was how far out should I have a forecast?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, first, the forecast should align with the duration of your strategy. You know, most companies have a 3-year or should have a 3-year strategic direction. So in my view, a 3-year forecast makes the most sense. Obviously, you could extend that duration if your strategic plan calls for it.
I see a question and a statement from Antonio. Let's see. It sounds like his business is having to shift to a new product due to the current COVID situation. Any tips, Nick?
Yeah, and you know what, I would tell you that you're not alone. In fact, you're seeing a number of different businesses across industries either outright pivot or consider other product offerings or just service offerings. And what I would ask you to think about is your overall strategy and business model. There's a couple tools. You know, one is the Nationwide Business Solution Series, in which we talk about the fundamentals of strategy. I would watch that video and address those questions as to, you know, who your target market is, what specific geography are you going after? And then in parallel, I love using the business model canvas. If you guys just Google business model canvas, it's a 1-page sheet. So whenever I'm contemplating a new idea or a pivot, either in a new venture or an existing venture, I always challenge myself to use that business model canvas because it really frames, you know, those key business questions before you go on too far.
All right, we have a few more questions. Let's see. What's the difference between a lifestyle and an enterprise entrepreneur?
Yeah, this is a great one, Brianna, and it comes from the video series, the business solution video series, in which we, in that opening video, make the distinction between a lifestyle entrepreneur and an enterprise entrepreneur. And the main difference is really the prioritization of lifestyle and financial priorities. So consider this, lifestyle entrepreneurship, what we're really doing is prioritizing the design of the business around the owner's personal needs. So the owner has a certain need around income. The owner has a certain need around the amount of time that they can spend on the business. And those are very, very legitimate and viable things to drive the design of the business. Contrast that, though, with an enterprise entrepreneur, in which the design of the business there is around a market opportunity, right? And what I mean by a market opportunity is they're generally thinking about a segment of the marketplace in which they operate and the problem that that market segment has and their unique solution. And they're generally organizing their resources and their capital differently than the lifestyle entrepreneur. And so the difference is generally reflected in the scale of an organization, right? If you think about companies that scale, companies that are able to raise dollars, these are generally enterprise operations. Again, this is not to say that lifestyle entrepreneurship is less than or bad in any way, and just drawing out the distinctions between the two types. But great question.
Thank you. Here's one from the Q&A. Nick, I was at a point of preparing to find investors for my business. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs in my position?
Yeah, one is, I think this is a wonderful time to be thinking about raising dollars, right? And here's why. One of the challenges in raising capital is obviously getting access to the people that run various funds or have access to capital. Because they're traveling, they're talking at trade shows or conferences. And here's what we know about basically everyone in the country today. Every key decision maker is generally in the same place, in their living room, right now, right? And so when you think about the ability to access people that have dollars, this is really an unprecedented moment. And so the reason why I say this is a great time to be raising money is not so much about getting the checks cut in the next 60 days, but I think you have a unique opportunity to actually develop relationships with people. And in particular, I think there's an opportunity for you to be sharing your decision-making in a time of crisis. A lot of people, when they're evaluating talent for investment opportunities, they'll pose hypothetical situations. We're living through a wonderful reference point for any investor in terms of how an entrepreneur manages the business in a crisis. So take advantage of your narrative.
This is a related question, Nick, from Jorge in the Q&A. Given the current situation, what strategy do you recommend to approach an investor for the first time?
Yes, great question, right? And think about it this way. I like reaching out to people that I don't know in places where they are with people that are like themselves. So think of them as like, these affinity circles. And because everyone's at home, they're not out, so you can't physically go to these places. Historically, there have been like trade shows and conferences and different talks that investors are at. Those are great places to meet people. Now that everyone's home, it's shifted to the digital realm. So here's what I would recommend, Jorge. Think about your target market for investors and where are they in the digital realm. I would suggest that they're probably in a couple of places. They're generally posting things on LinkedIn. They may have a blog of their own. Many investors are active on Twitter. I would try to find the digital place where they are keeping plugged into their community. And then what I'm doing is I want to engage them. I'm not necessarily pitching them. I'm simply trying to understand their point of view. And then I'm providing feedback with my own experiences on their point of view. And again, I think you can do that through my primary targets are going to be LinkedIn, blogs, Twitter.
I think you touched on this one a little bit earlier, Nick, but another question was, how do I make a good prediction on my scenario probabilities and financial forecast?
Yeah, and it's a great question, Brianna, because if you think about today, that's what we were doing. We were effectively making predictions across these different durations using these various economic scenarios. So one of the ways that I think we can improve our ability to make predictions is by doing more research. Now, I get it. Running a company is no small feat. And there's a lot of things that we have to manage just in running our business. But I'm going to challenge all of us to really ask ourselves, what research, what industry research, macro and micro, are we really plugged into? Because our ability to make sound predictions really is a function of how vast our vision is. And so I like using research as a primary component. And then I also think about more broadly, how does the ecosystem in which I'm playing make money? So I'm thinking about my clients or my target market, and I'm asking myself, what's their business model look like, right? And what's happening to them through these various scenarios? And it doesn't take very long after you start empathizing with your ecosystem, both your customers and your suppliers, that you start getting some interesting insights that are applicable to your business.
All right, here's our final question before we let you close, Nick. What is one thing that entrepreneurs are not considering but should be as part of their growth strategy?
Yeah, I really love this question, Brianna, because obviously we're in a moment that's very challenging, and a lot of our mindset is focused on tactical issues, which I certainly appreciate, right? The PPPs and the EIDL. When is the government going to make more money available? How do I keep my customers? But here's one thing that I would suggest that you also consider alongside the tactical, which is around growth and mergers and acquisitions, right? And I know for some of you this they sound crazy, but M&A is a really interesting option right now because capital is cheap and people are scared. And this is an excellent time to be looking at acquisitions as a way to scale your enterprise, and by scaling, de-risking your business model. I think what we've really seen in the last 45 days through COVID is that the most vulnerable businesses are the smallest businesses that don't have robust infrastructure. So M&A is an opportunity to infuse a company with capital, to bring on additional capacity to make sure that a business can not only scale, but also has a different risk profile.
Thank you, Nick. Anything you want to leave us with before I turn it back to Ramiro?
Yeah, thank you, Brianna. Let me just say, as we wrap, please take a look at Nationwide's Business Solution Series. There's some great insights there on strategy and raising capital. And let me just close by saying I am grateful for all of you on this call and all of your energy today by investing your time in today's exercise. If there's anything I can share to help you, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Thank you, Nationwide, for always having our communities back, and USHCC for being a great champion for employment, business success, and wealth in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Ramiro?
Thank you, Nick. That was a great presentation, and I love history, so I love the history and the cycles of our economy, because I think it gives us that perspective that we need, since many of us, especially myself, remember even the previous cycles related to OPEC in the early 70s with the energy expansion in costs, how that hit the economy, and of course 9/11, and then the Great Recession. And so thank you for giving us that perspective, and also confidence that there is an end to this and we need to be prepared for it, like you said. So Nick, thank you very much for a great presentation. We're just very grateful at the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to you, Nick, for your presentation, but also I want to thank everyone that joined us today who participated. It's our hope that you found this session invaluable, and that the session will be one of many that will come, how we can learn about how to protect our business. And there'll be learnings also from videos and an accompanying workbook, according to our team here, that will be helpful to help grow your business. I want to thank Lou and Lori and the whole team at Nationwide, and especially Brianna, who helped us with the poll as we were going through it. I want to thank our staff on behalf of our board of directors and our 250 chamber network across the country, and our 4.5 million Hispanic-owned businesses that are on the front lines today. We're very grateful to you, Nick, and Nationwide. and everyone that joined us today. So with that, we stand adjourned, and we look forward to continuing to work with Nationwide, who are great corporate partners in getting us the information that we need as we go forward and survive this crisis. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. This concludes our webinar, but Nick, I do see a few more requests for contact information. I'm putting my own contact information in the chat. If you have other questions that you didn't feel comfortable asking, but you want to send them to us, you can send it to bdemas@ushcc.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great job. Great job, guys. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Lou.
Bye-bye.
Bye.